Osama bin Laden, Rob O'Neill was on, and he knows something about torture. He had this observation. Listen to this.
If you can walk away from it as soon as it ends, it's not torture. These are just techniques that can be used to find the truth, find him in a lie, and then exploit it.
Rob, I know that a lot of my friends that have become Navy SEALs and trained military people, they themselves went through many of these techniques that were used on people like Zebeda and KSM. Did you have to go through any of that in your training?
Oh, yeah. They use all kinds of techniques on us that make it very, very uncomfortable. We have stuff that's called surf torture, drown proofing, things like that. And if some of these Human Watch people actually saw SEAL training, they'd probably try to cancel it.
If you can walk away from it, it ain't torture.
Well, technically that's not accurate because statutorily one of the tests is there a imminent threat of death? This is, for example, that would rise to the level of torture, and as a result was not involved in the kind of techniques that were used on these high-value targets. But an interesting point, remember, tens of thousands of people in the Air Force have gone through SARE, survival, evasion, resistance, and escape, which involves waterboarding. Now, the Navy SEALs go through BUDS training, in which they are subjected to a whole series of things that would violate our statutory requirements against.
You know what stands out too is because in the report, this is the Democratic report, they said, well, the Bush administration wasn't for the vice president and president, and both of them came back and said, we were informed. Yeah. We knew exactly. Yeah, so there was your out. You could have taken it, but you didn't.
How idiotic was that? Because in the report, in a footnote, they say, well, Bush was apparently not informed of these techniques until 2006, and yet in his own book, issued several years ago and available in any public library, the president outlines how he, at the time, was advised of the necessity for these, that he ordered it to be reviewed by lawyers, that the options were presented to him, that he said you can use 10 of them but not 2 others, and authorize this, and then describes the advantages of these and how we got actionable intelligence that's kept America safe. This led to Jose Padilla. This led to stopping the attack on the Canary Wharf Business District in London. It stopped the attack on Heathrow. It stopped the attack that was going to be mounted by a cell of 17 people from Southeast Asia using airplanes on the west coast of the United States, and lots of others that have never become public. Stopped attacks on U.S. military and diplomatic installations abroad. And the president puts this in his book, and these idiots at the Senate Intelligence Committee don't have a library card that allows them to go and find the book to find out that the president was. They talked to no one.
Are you suggesting that the Democrat report in the Senate is wrong?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, Mark Thiessen, my former White House colleague and now columnist for the Washington Post, had a terrific column this week in which he said, look, Rolling Stone magazine is being excoriated properly for not having sought out the people who were supposedly involved in the rape incident at the University of Virginia, and yet here's the Senate Intelligence Committee. Same thing.
Well, they didn't go to James Mitchell. They didn't ask him anything.
No, they talked to no one. No one. James Mitchell's not alone. They talked to no one, and they had a phony excuse, which was, well, there was an investigation undergoing. Well, that investigation ended 2 years ago, and people like the directors of the CIA were not the subject of the investigation. They could have talked to them anytime in the last 6 years where they're busily spending $40 or $50 million of our money on this monkey business.
And if Al-Qaeda didn't want to be put under any of this, they could have done this other thing called talk. If they talk and expose their plans and plots, they wouldn't have had to do this.
When all of these techniques were employed, that's exactly what they did. It broke their resistance, and they began to talk, and they began to cough up vital information that kept us safe. And it's keeping us safe today.
Right. Majority of Americans feel the same way.
Thank you very much for joining us on the Kirby Couch.
Great to be here. Happy holidays.
Thank you indeed. Meanwhile, we've got Ainsley